He once humiliated his wife in front of everyone for not being the kind of woman he wanted. But what happened 3 years later will leave you speechless and questioning everything you thought you knew about love and success. Stay tuned because you are about to watch a beautiful story and find out what happened next. Hello, family. Welcome to Tales Haven. Kindly subscribe to my YouTube channel for more beautiful stories. Thank you as you do so. Sit back, relax as we dive into the story. The evening glowed softly inside the Miles mansion, chandeliers hanging like stars, candles flickering across the long dining table, and laughter echoing through the halls. To everyone else, it looked like a celebration of success. But to Amelia Miles, it was a night she had carefully planned to remind her husband that love and home still existed beyond money and power. She woke up that morning before sunrise. She wanted everything to be perfect: the roasted chicken, the creamy mashed potatoes, and her special chocolate dessert she hadn't made in years. She wore her apron proudly, humming as she cooked. Her heart danced with the thought of Ethan smiling, maybe even saying, "This is the best meal I've ever had." But deep inside, she was nervous. Ethan had changed since becoming a millionaire. The man who once loved her for her kindness now cared more about status, perfection, and appearances. Still, she believed that one meal, cooked with love, could remind him of who they used to be. By evening, everything was ready. The table was set with golden plates and crystal glasses. Their guests began to arrive: Ethan's business partners and their wives, all dressed in designer suits and sparkling gowns. Amelia greeted them with a warm smile, though her hands shook slightly. Ethan entered last, tall and confident, his black suit crisp and his face unreadable. "Smells interesting," he said, glancing at the dishes. Amelia smiled weakly. "I made your favorite, roasted chicken with rosemary." Dinner began. For a moment, Amelia felt proud watching everyone eat. But then it happened. Ethan sliced a piece of chicken, chewed slowly, and frowned. "This is dry," he muttered. Then louder, so everyone could hear, "Amelia, how do you still not know how to cook properly? Even the servants can do better." The room fell silent. One of the guests chuckled awkwardly, trying to ease the tension. But Ethan wasn't done. "I should have married a chef instead," he added with a laugh. The guests laughed too, out of fear, not amusement. Amelia's heart shattered, though she smiled weakly to hide her pain. She stared down at her plate, her throat tight. Every word he said echoed louder than the chatter in the room. When the dinner ended, Ethan stood to make a toast. To success, and to never eating home-cooked disasters again. The laughter returned, and Amelia felt her world collapse around her. She excused herself quietly and went into the kitchen. There, away from everyone's eyes, she finally let her tears fall. Her reflection in the glass oven door looked like a stranger, a woman who once dreamed of opening her own restaurant, now mocked for trying to cook love into a meal. She remembered how she once told Ethan her biggest dream: to be a chef known for bringing happiness through food. He used to smile and say, "You'll make it, my love." But that man was gone. The one in the dining room cared more about pride than partnership. When everyone left, the house grew quiet again. Ethan came into the kitchen, scrolling through his phone. "Next time order catering," he said coldly, not even looking at her. That was it. No apology. No understanding. Just words that stabbed deeper than knives. After he left, Amelia sat on the kitchen stool, looking at the empty plates. Her tears dried slowly, replaced by a strange calmness. The humiliation had hurt her deeply, but somewhere inside her, something stronger was waking up, a silent fire, a whisper that said, "You can rise again." That night, Amelia made a promise to herself. She would never let anyone define her worth again. Not even her millionaire husband. The next morning, before dawn, she packed a small bag, leaving behind her wedding ring and a note on the kitchen counter. Her hands trembled as she wrote, but her heart finally felt alive. "I'm not leaving because I stopped loving you, Ethan. I'm leaving because I finally remembered to love myself." She took one last look at the mansion, at the life she once thought was perfect, and stepped out into the early morning breeze, broken, but determined to rebuild. It was the end of humiliation, and the beginning of her transformation. The cold morning air brushed against Amelia's face as she stepped onto the quiet streets of New York. She didn't know exactly where she was going, but she knew she couldn't stay in that house another day. The humiliation from last night still echoed in her chest like a wound that refused to close. Yet beneath her pain, a small light flickered. Hope. She took a cab to a modest part of Brooklyn where the air smelled of street food and fresh coffee, not of perfume and power. She rented a small one-room apartment with peeling paint and creaking floors. It wasn't much, but it was hers, her first space in years where she could breathe freely without walking on eggshells. Her first few days were difficult. The silence in her new apartment was loud, and she sometimes woke up in the middle of the night, hearing Ethan's voice in her head, "You can't even cook properly." Each time it hurt, but it also reminded her why she left. One morning, she walked past a small culinary school. The smell of butter, spices, and fresh herbs floated out of the open door. She stopped and stood there for a long moment, watching students laugh and slice vegetables inside. Something inside her whispered, "This is where you belong." Without thinking twice, she went in. A kind middle-aged woman at the reception looked up and smiled. "Good morning, dear. How can I help you?" Amelia hesitated. I want to learn how to cook properly," she said softly. "Not just for others, but for myself." The woman nodded kindly. "You've come to the right place. Classes start next week." Amelia filled out the form with shaking hands. The tuition wasn't cheap, but she took a part-time job washing dishes at a nearby cafe to pay for it. Every night, after work, she studied recipes and practiced what she learned in her tiny kitchen. Sometimes her food burned. Sometimes it turned out perfect. But every mistake became a lesson, and every small success made her heart stronger. Weeks turned into months. Her instructors noticed her dedication. She arrived early, stayed late, and never complained. Even when her hands blistered from hours of chopping and scrubbing, she smiled. Pain didn't scare her anymore, failure did. One day, her instructor, Chef Lucia, called her aside. "Amelia," she said, "you have something rare, passion that comes from pain. People who cook from their hearts are the ones who change lives." Those words stayed with Amelia. They became her motivation. She began experimenting with her own recipes, simple dishes that told stories of comfort, healing, and love. She cooked with feeling, remembering her past but not allowing it to define her. By her second year, she had become one of the best students in the school. Her final project, a dish she named Rosemary Redemption Chicken, was inspired by the same meal she once ruined at Ethan's dinner. But this time, the flavors were perfect, balanced, soulful, and rich. When the judges tasted it, one of them said with tears in his eyes, "This dish doesn't just feed the stomach, it feeds the heart." That night, Amelia cried again, but for the first time, they were tears of pride. With the support of Chef Lucia and a small loan from a women's startup foundation, Amelia opened a little restaurant in Brooklyn. She called it Grace and Fire. Grace for the kindness she refused to lose, and fire for the strength that kept her alive. The restaurant started small, just 10 tables, hand-painted chairs, and walls decorated with old pictures of people sharing meals. She personally welcomed every customer, serving dishes filled with warmth and sincerity. Slowly, word began to spread. People didn't just come for the food, they came for the feeling. Her dishes had stories. Her presence had peace. Soon, Grace and Fire became one of the most talked-about restaurants in the city. Food bloggers wrote glowing reviews, and TV hosts requested interviews. Amelia never bragged about her success. Instead, she thanked every customer, every helper, every small miracle that had brought her this far. But deep in her heart, she knew the same man who had once humiliated her would one day see what she had become. And she wasn't wrong. Because one rainy afternoon, as thunder rolled outside and the restaurant buzzed with laughter and aroma, a familiar name appeared in the reservation book. Ethan Miles. The man who once crushed her dreams was now asking for a table at Grace and Fire. And Amelia smiled softly, knowing the time had come, not for revenge, but for revelation. Rain tapped softly against the windows of Grace and Fire as the dinner crowd settled in. Warm light washed over the small dining room, making the place feel like home. The air carried the scent of rosemary, lemon, and butter, the kind of smell that made people close their eyes and smile. Amelia stood at the pass, checking each plate with calm focus. Her team moved around her with quiet respect. She tasted a sauce, adjusted a sprig of thyme, and nodded. Everything was in rhythm, until the front-of-house manager, Nora, hurried over with the reservation book pressed to her chest. "Chef," Nora whispered, eyes wide. "The 7:30 table, it's confirmed. Name, Ethan Miles." For a moment, the room seemed to slow. Amelia's hand paused above a plate. She felt the old ache try to rise, but it met something stronger, the steady peace she had built. She set the plate down and breathed in the scent of lemon zest. Then she lifted her eyes and said simply, "Seat him." The bell over the door chimed. He stepped in from the rain, taller than she remembered, but different in the way only hard seasons can change a person. His expensive coat looked heavy on his shoulders. He scanned the room with uncertainty, as if he was searching for a place to belong. "Reservation for Miles," he told the host, his voice softer than it used to be. Nora guided him to a small table by the window. Candles flickered. People laughed quietly around him. No one gasped at his name. Here, he wasn't Millionaire Ethan. He was just a man looking for dinner. From the kitchen, Amelia watched him sit. She didn't hide. She didn't run. She wiped her hands on her apron and stepped into the dining room with the grace of a woman who had learned to stand in her own light. When Ethan looked up and saw her in the chef's coat, he froze. Hope, fear, and shame crossed his face all at once. "Amelia," he breathed, almost not believing. This is your place?" She nodded, her expression kind but steady. "Welcome to Grace and Fire, Mr. Miles. We're glad to have you." He swallowed. "I didn't know," he said, voice shaking. "Everyone talks about this restaurant. I had to see it for myself." "Then let our food speak," she replied. "Would you trust the chef's tasting tonight?" He glanced at the menu, then back at her. "I'll trust you." A small silence held between them. Not heavy, not bitter. Just honest. She gave a single nod and returned to the kitchen. "Chef's tasting for table 6, she called, and her team gathered like a family ready to help. The first course was a simple soup, roasted carrot and ginger with a bright swirl of coconut cream and a whisper of lime. It arrived at his table like a warm hello. Ethan lifted the spoon and tasted. His shoulders fell. His eyes closed. It was comfort in a bowl. The second course followed, a small plate of wild mushrooms on toasted brioche, finished with a glossy reduction and a soft quail egg. The flavors were deep and earthy. The textures danced. He took a slow breath after each bite, as if the food was asking him to remember something good. In the kitchen, Amelia wasn't watching him. She was cooking. She plated with care, wiped the rims, and sent each dish with a quiet confidence earned from long nights and honest work. For the third course, she paused. Her hand hovered over the herbs. Then she chose rosemary. "Rosemary redemption chicken," she told Nora. "Small tasting portion. Perfect skin. Bright pan sauce. Roasted lemon. Don't announce the name, just serve it." When the plate reached Ethan, he stared at it as if time had folded. Golden, crisp skin. A pool of glossy sauce. Steam rising, carrying citrus and herbs. He cut into the meat. The knife slid like sighing silk. He lifted a bite. The first taste was salt and lemon, then warmth, then the steady music of rosemary.
Moist, not dry.
Alive, not afraid. He kept chewing, and his eyes glassed over. One tear slipped, then another. He didn't wipe them away. He set the fork down and looked toward the kitchen window. Amelia was there behind the pass, checking tickets, giving a calm smile to a nervous line cook, tasting a sauce, nodding. She wasn't watching him. She didn't need to. The food was speaking. After the fourth course, A bright salad of shaved fennel, apple, and mint to clear the memory. Ethan asked quietly, "May I speak with the chef?" Nora relayed the request. Amelia finished a plate, wiped her hands, and walked to table 6. "How is everything?" she asked. He stood, not out of politeness, but out of respect. "It's perfect," he said, voice unsteady. "All of it. Especially the chicken." He struggled for words. "I remember that night. I've replayed it for 3 years. I was cruel. I wanted to look powerful. Instead, I was small." The dining room hummed around them, gentle and warm. Amelia listened without folding her arms, without stepping back. She let the moment be true. "I'm sorry," he said finally. "For the words, for the laughter, for the way I made you feel less than the dream inside you." Amelia nodded, the pain passing over her face like a cloud over water, felt but not held. "I carried those words for a long time," she admitted. "They used to hurt every time I picked up a knife. But pain became a teacher. Fire taught me not just to cook, but to become." He lowered his gaze. "You built something beautiful." "We did," she said, glancing toward her team. "No one succeeds alone." He looked around, at the couples leaning closer, at the friends sharing bites, at the servers moving like quiet melody. "I didn't come here for drama," he said softly. "I came because people said this place heals. I didn't know I'd be the one who needed healing." Amelia let a small smile soften her eyes. "Then let's finish the journey." The final course arrived, her signature dessert, warm midnight chocolate cake with a river of molten center, a small scoop of vanilla bean ice cream, and a sprinkle of sea salt. Ethan took a bite and let out a sound that was almost a laugh. It tasted like forgiveness meeting memory. When the plate was clean, he stood again. "May I come back?" he asked, the question much larger than it sounded. "This is a restaurant," she said gently. "Our door stays open." He nodded, understanding the boundary and the grace inside it. He reached for his wallet, but Nora stopped him with a soft shake of her head. "The chef has comped your tasting," she said. "She asks only that you sign the guest book." At the host stand, Ethan opened a thick book filled with handwritten messages. For a long moment, he stared at the blank line. Then he wrote, "To the chef who turned pain into art, I tasted my mistake tonight, and it was seasoned with mercy."
Yem.
He set down the pen and looked back one last time. Through the window into the kitchen, Amelia was plating, laughing quietly with a young cook, touching a shoulder to steady, shaky hands. She looked at peace. Outside, the rain had eased to a mist. Ethan stepped into the night lighter than he had arrived. Back in the kitchen, Nora approached with the guest book open to his message. "Do you want to see this?" she asked. Amelia read the line once. Her breath trembled, then evened. She closed the book. "Fire down on station 2, she said, voice gently bright. "We've got a full board. Let's keep feeding hearts." Behind her, the printer clicked and hummed with new orders. In front of her, the flames lifted like small suns. She reached for the pan handle, steady and sure. And somewhere between rosemary and chocolate, between rain and candlelight, something that had been broken years ago felt quietly whole. Tomorrow he would return, not to take but to honor, not to be seen but to see. And when he did, a deeper conversation would begin, one not about revenge, but about what comes after apology, truth, boundaries, and the kind of forgiveness that frees them both. The morning after Ethan's visit, the restaurant felt unusually calm. The rain had passed, leaving a soft glow on the streets. Sunlight spilled through the windows of grace and fire, touching every corner with warmth. Amelia stood near the counter, flipping through the reservation book when her eyes caught a familiar name again, Ethan Miles, 7 p.m. Her fingers paused. He was coming back. For a moment, she didn't know what to feel, surprise, curiosity, or quiet fear. But then she reminded herself, she wasn't the same woman he once hurt. She was stronger now, peaceful, and full of purpose. By evening, the restaurant came alive once more. Soft jazz played, the scent of baked bread filled the air, and laughter circled through the tables. Amelia moved gracefully between the kitchen and dining area, dressed in her white chef's coat with her hair tied neatly. When she turned toward the door, she saw him, Ethan, in a simple shirt and jeans, no bodyguards, no suit, no pride. Just a man carrying regret in his eyes. He stood by the door awkwardly until she approached. "Mr. Miles," she greeted gently, her tone calm. "Please," he said quietly, "just Ethan tonight." She smiled faintly. "Then welcome back, Ethan." He nodded, looking around. "I didn't come for dinner this time. I came to talk, if you'll allow me." Amelia hesitated for a moment, then gestured toward a small table by the window, the same one where he had sat before. "Let's sit," she said softly. As they sat across from each other, silence filled the air, not cold, but meaningful. He looked at her hands resting on the table, steady and confident. Those same hands once trembled while serving him a burned meal, and now they built an empire of taste. "I don't know how to start," Ethan said finally. "But I've spent these years thinking about that night. I thought success gave me the right to speak to people any way I wanted. I was wrong." Amelia listened quietly, her eyes kind but unreadable. He continued, voice breaking. "You were the best thing that ever happened to me. I was too blind to see that. And when I lost you, I lost more than a wife. I lost my peace." For a moment, she said nothing. The only sound was the clinking of glasses and the soft tune playing in the background. "I forgive you, Ethan," she said finally, her tone gentle but firm. "Not because what you did didn't hurt, it did. But because holding on to pain would have stopped me from becoming who I am today." He blinked hard, his eyes shining. "You always had the biggest heart," he whispered. "And I destroyed it." She shook her head. "You didn't destroy it. You just made me rebuild it stronger." They both laughed softly, the tension melting into something warm. After a pause, Ethan asked, "Do you ever think we could start again? Not as before, but as two people who've grown." Amelia looked at him thoughtfully. "Starting again doesn't always mean going back," she said. "It can mean walking forward, maybe in different directions, but without bitterness." He nodded slowly, understanding her meaning. "Then let me at least be proud of you, properly this time." That night, Ethan stayed until closing time, helping her wipe tables and fold napkins, just talking like old friends. They laughed about small things, shared stories of where life had taken them, and for the first time in years, their words didn't carry pain, only peace. As she turned off the restaurant lights, he looked around and smiled. "You did it, Amelia. You turned humiliation into grace." She met his gaze, her eyes soft. "And you turned pride into humility. That's growth too." He stepped closer but didn't touch her, just smiled sadly. "I hope someday, when people ask who taught you courage, you'll think of me kindly." She nodded. "I already do." Outside, the night breeze was cool. They walked to the door together. Before leaving, Ethan looked back once more. "This place," he said quietly, "feels like love." Amelia smiled, her heart light. "That's exactly what I built it for." He walked into the night, his figure fading into the glow of streetlights. Amelia watched him go, not with sadness, but with peace. Some endings don't need to hurt. Some are blessings in disguise. Weeks later, Amelia's restaurant was awarded Best Culinary Experience in New York City. During her speech, she looked out at the cheering crowd, her voice calm and full of emotion. 3 years ago, I was told I couldn't cook. Today, I stand here not because I proved someone wrong, but because I proved myself right. Grace taught me forgiveness. Fire taught me strength. And together, they made me who I am." The audience rose in applause. In the back row, unnoticed, Ethan smiled proudly, clapping with quiet tears. After the ceremony, Amelia stepped outside, holding her trophy under the moonlight. She looked up and whispered, "Thank you, God, for turning pain into purpose." As she walked home through the calm streets, her heart was free. No anger, no resentment, just gratitude and peace. Because sometimes the greatest victory is not revenge, but forgiveness that ends in love, the kind that doesn't need to be romantic to be real. And under the gentle glow of the city lights, Amelia finally felt whole again. Months passed, and life moved quietly for both of them. Ethan often stopped by Grace and Fire, not as a powerful man, but as a humble visitor who admired the woman she had become. He never pushed, never demanded. He simply showed up, helping when the restaurant was busy, bringing flowers for the staff, and sometimes leaving notes that said, "You inspire me to be better." Amelia saw the change. It wasn't the same man who once mocked her. This Ethan listened more, spoke softly, and smiled with humility. Slowly, friendship bloomed again, honest and gentle. One evening, after closing, they sat outside the restaurant under a string of warm lights. The city was quiet, the stars soft above them. Ethan turned to her. "You taught me that love isn't about perfection," he said quietly. "It's about patience, kindness, and growth. If you let me, I want to love you right this time." Amelia's eyes glistened. Her heart, once guarded, finally opened again. "Maybe love deserves a second chance," she whispered. He reached for her hand, not as a man claiming ownership, but as one offering devotion. She didn't pull away. From that night, they began anew, not as who they were, but as who they had become. They rebuilt trust slowly, with laughter, forgiveness, and faith. Ethan supported her dreams, and Amelia found in him the partner she always hoped he'd be. Years later, they stood side by side in a larger version of Grace and Fire, surrounded by friends, family, and staff who called them Chef Amelia and Mr. Ethan. The restaurant had grown, but the love that built it was still simple, honest, forgiving, and strong. And as they watched the sunset through the wide glass windows, Ethan whispered, "You turned our broken story into a masterpiece." Amelia smiled softly. "No," she said, "we did." And in that golden light, they kissed, not as two people remembering the past, but as two souls finally living there happily ever after. That brings us to the end of this video. I hope you find this story worth watching. If you do, kindly subscribe to my YouTube channel, like, and share this video to your friends and loved ones. Your support and engagement encourage me to post more videos. Thanks for watching.